Hello, this is Peter Davison, and you're listening to Discussing Who.
Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Discussing Who. I am Kyle Jones and I want to welcome you to a very special episode of Discussing Who. Why is it a very special episode? Well, we have an announcement to make. We have a Facebook group for the Discussing Network. This Facebook group is something that we want to use as a community so that the host of Discussing Who, Discussing Trek, Discussing Comics can interact with the ones who are listening, who honestly to me, we're just the host, but you guys listening are the absolute most important part of this podcast because you're the ones listening and we want to interact with you guys. So how can you find the Discussing Network group? Simply go to Facebook, go to groups, and do a search for Discussing Network. Or, to make it really, really easy, simply go to the show notes below, and I will include a link down below. On this episode, we are excited to have back a very special guest. I had an opportunity about 2 weeks ago from the date of this recording to have a conversation with someone who has not been on this podcast since episode number 85. And who is that? None other than Jessica from the SesskaSays YouTube channel. We had an opportunity to talk about Doctor Who, Classic, and Series 11, and also if you are a fan of other things that Jessica watches, we also recorded an episode of Discussing Comics talking about, guess what? The Walking Dead. And considering the fact that as of this recording, we're one episode away from the very last Game of Thrones, Jessica and I also talked about Game of Thrones. If you want to hear that, simply go to Discussing Comics. Both of these episodes are being released simultaneously. So it is available right now. And honestly, I think you've heard enough of me for now. Why don't we just come back and I will have Jessica back with me. All right, as I just mentioned a moment ago, I am able to welcome back for the first time since episode, I believe it was episode 85, where we talked about the first Doctor Who December, and now we've had a second Doctor Who December, and we're another year, so welcome back, Jessica from SesskaSays. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am excited to talk Doctor Who with you, and I'll tell you why. Before we started recording, I sat down and purposely rewatched your series review, and I can't wait to hear some thoughts about Series 11. So, question, I want to start out with the overall. What was your overall opinion or thought about Doctor Who Series 11?
I think that it was so new and just a really kind of fresh new take, which I really enjoyed. There were some things that I liked about it, but there was a couple of things that I disliked. But for the most part, I found it very enjoyable. I will say the one thing is that I needed to get used to the fact that there wasn't like an kind of an arc for this season. There was a couple of things that went throughout the season, but there wasn't like a big mystery arc like Moffat really liked to do. So that was a bit of adjusting, I think. But for the most part, I really enjoyed it. I felt like there were a lot of really good episodes in there.
You know, it's interesting that you said that because I am going to echo something that you said in your review. And for anyone listening, I will put the link in the show notes below. So if you can check out the full review of Series 11, along with all the reactions to each episode of Series 11. And you can also go all the way back to Rose and watch all the reaction. But having said that, one of the things that you did say in regards to the writing about specifically 12's run with Peter Capaldi, there was a clear arc of where they started this doctor and where they took this doctor. I don't know if I feel that this doctor went anywhere from the woman who fell to earth to resolution at New Year.
I definitely agree with that. There was a moment in, I'm going to say it wrong, the Serenga conundrum, that one.
Serenga conundrum. Pating.
Where she got kind of like selfish, that they were on like a medical ship and she was kind of like being like, well, I have to get back to my TARDIS and this, that, and the other thing and like whatever. And I loved that moment so much because they showed this doctor with a flaw, with something that wasn't kind of not always happy and perfect. And I wanted more of that moment, and I didn't really get too much of that going forward. So I'm hoping that we get to explore this doctor, not just by kind of saving the day over and over again, but I mean, I feel like almost all of the doctors that I have seen before, they've had flaws with, except for 11, he was perfect, but other than, I'm just kidding.
True. No, I will give you, I will give you that because I go back and I watch 11's episodes and we've been reviewing, 10's episodes and, I'll go back and watch, like the other day I went back and watched Twice Upon a Time again. I have only watched any of the episodes over again. I've watched Rosa over again. I have watched, Resolution over again. And I've watched The Woman Who Fell to Earth over again. And that is unusual for me. And I just don't know. It's almost like there is a piece of the pie missing. And we've talked about this on this show and debated it back and forth. And I want to ask you the question. If I were to say there's a piece of the pie missing, what is that piece of the pie that you would say is the missing piece?
I think it's making the characters go through more on the show. In the sense of like, because some of them have had arcs. I think Ryan had a kind of clear arc for the season, even if they only touched on it every so often and things like that. And to have them kind of, there's a nice family unit that they have, but I don't think it's as strong as some of the companion doctor relationships that we've seen before, because that was more like they've been through so much together. And I just don't like, I really want a scene where like Graham kind of helps the doctor with something, cause I feel he's lived and he's got great advice, and maybe the doctor has kind of a moment where she loses her cool or something like that. And Graham is there to help her through that moment or something like that, and have like intimate, I guess that's what I mean. Intimate moments between the characters. Cause I think they've had nice moments. I think they've had some strong, and I think Ryan and Graham have had moments together and everything like that. But, I think that's what it needs.
Yes.
For us to really feel a connection between these characters.
Yes. And two of the comments that you made in your review, you said in regards to the companions or her new friends, as they're calling them now, is you loved the opportunity of these characters, and specifically for Yaz. And I'm going to echo what you said for anyone listening who is a fan of Yaz. I'm a fan of Yaz. I'm just saying that I agree with you that the writing, other than the Demons of the Punjab, for the most part, she was relegated to, hey, Yaz, go do this. Hey, Yaz, go do that. And while she's capable, she was the go-to, hey, you do that, this, that, and the other.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I think they need to utilize her a lot more.
Yes, I agree. And so here's my question, and I'm torn between these two things, and I'm curious as to your thoughts. We've got we've got 3 companions. We've got a brand new doctor, and we've also got a new composer. And this came up for us when we were reviewing Gridlock. And Lee and I made the comment that the music that was played, This Is Gallifrey and The Face of Bo's music, was one of our favorite tracks that Murray Gold played and repeated, etc., and so forth. Do you notice that there's not as much of a swelling musical score, or is that something that you pay attention to?
Yes, I miss Murray Gold a lot, but I think he was very great at instilling certain emotions with just bringing back certain songs. You know, if you hear just, Clara's theme.
Yes.
Or whatever, whatever it is. I'm just trying to think of one that
Clara's
you can
theme,
recognize.
You could not have thought of a better one, honestly, because you even had Capaldi playing Clara's theme in the diner. So you couldn't have picked a better example.
And I do think there is something to be said about the fact that, and I was not the biggest, I think I wasn't the biggest fan of it, though I do understand what they were doing with it. The fact that Series 11 really didn't touch too much on the previous seasons at all. They didn't really refer back to a ton, except for maybe a side comment there, and she put on the fez in one episode, but I think a lot of what makes Doctor Who so special is the history of it all.
Yes.
It's been going on forever. So I don't think it's a great idea you don't have to bring back every monster, but you can maybe mention River.
Yes.
Or whatever. I mean, take your pick of whoever. I think the music, that's also like a part of it. Maybe.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And, I'm going to echo again something that you said in your review. It's not because she's a woman. It's not because that I don't want or didn't want a female doctor. It's almost like she was an equal companion to the group. And for a viewer, it was like, for me, and the more I try to process my thought of it, because again, it's not that I don't like her. It is, I don't know her. And that's, I don't like that. I don't like that I went through an entire season and I don't feel like I know this doctor.
Right. I think that that's fair. I do think that maybe, I don't know. It's funny when I think about it, because I feel the same way. I didn't feel the strongest connection to her, though I think she absolutely has I don't dislike her. I just feel like maybe the writing wasn't the best for her doctor and where they went with it. But when I think about Capaldi's first season, and I knew who he was, and I love season 8. It's one of my favorites, and Matt Smith's first season was my favorite season. So I feel like, as much as I'm like, well, they still have more time and they can flesh out the character and her portrayal and everything. At the same time, I'm like, but the other ones, I understood who they were pretty early on.
And I think, so, I was sitting here listening to you, and as I normally do for anyone listening to this show, I come back and say, well, while you were talking, I thought. So while you were talking, I was sitting here thinking, and what I thought was, if I were the writer, the showrunner, I think what I would do is, I like Yaz as a character, but since you had Ryan and Graham and their character arc was so integral as a part of this story, I think it would have been okay to have met Yaz, and I think it would have been okay for them to have interacted with Yaz and even have gone on 1 or 2 trips with her. Oh,
yeah, I like that.
And then maybe in series
then make
12,
her a regular.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I think that would have
gone better.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So you had a particular companion that you liked the most. So for anyone listening, Who was your favorite new friend / companion?
It was Ryan. Or as I say, Ryan, whenever I'm like affectionately yelling at him.
That was proper awesome. I just want you to say. So what was it about his character that, just like when we were talking on discussing comics about The Walking Dead, you said that Connie really related to you. What was it about Ryan that really related?
Oh, I mean, there were so many, honestly, there were so many things. I remember in the first like 5 episodes, I just kept putting my hand on my heart and going, oh my God, me too. Like whenever he would say something, I'm like, I like that he works very hard. It seems like he doesn't ever expect anything to really be handed out to him. I love that about him. I also sympathize greatly whenever he's like, maybe we shouldn't go down this dark hallway or whatever it is, or like cave where there might be aliens but he's also just somebody who it seems like if anybody of those 3 are in trouble, he will like put himself in front of them. There's a bravery to him that I really enjoy watching. But I also think he's kind of smart in situations when it comes to, maybe when you shouldn't. Yeah. I'm definitely the type of person that I'm not the one that like is really interested in the unknown. I'm okay with the unknown being the unknown,
As long as we plan for the unknown to be the unknown.
Right. And I feel like he had a couple moments like that I was like, I get that. I sympathize. And just, I felt like the fact that he felt so abandoned, and I don't mean that his mom like intentionally abandoned him, but
or his grandmother.
Right. But it was just, I think there's these kind of walls he puts up, and, I really loved a lot of the scenes where, I mean, obviously Ryan and Graham were a very big part of the season, and that all of that was really great. But I also loved the scenes where it seemed like his walls were coming down a little bit with Yaz, and they just did it like once or twice. And then I felt like they forgot about it for the rest of the season. I'm like, wait, no, that's great. Like, why don't you keep touching on that? Because, I feel like it could be a really touching story for somebody who probably feels very abandoned in his life to find a family that's not going to abandon him.
So, interesting question for you based on, we've pretty much talked Yaz, we've talked Graham, we've talked Ryan. So if I were to say you're the showrunner and the BBC tells you could only keep one companion for 2020, who would you pick and why? It's the Doctor and one more companion. Who is it?
Man, I'm trying to... Oh, that's a really difficult question. I mean, I selfishly would want to say Ryan just because I really enjoy his character. But I would tentatively say Yaz if they do something better with Yaz.
Okay. I'll give you that.
And then like Ryan and Graham can like go off and be a family together, and it's cute, and I'm okay with that. But Yaz, as she has been written, I don't think I would want to stick through a season of that.
Okay.
I'm sorry to Yaz fans out there.
And I agree with you. I'm going to say, for me, easily, I would say Ryan is who I would keep. And my reason for keeping him would be, I think he can teach the Doctor as much as she can teach him.
I think that that's very true. Yeah.
So that's my, if I could only keep one. So this one is going to be maybe a little bit harder, or maybe it might not be. So taking this in another direction, if you were the showrunner and the BBC told you that you must eliminate one companion and keep the other 2 for 2020, who and why?
Well, if we're keeping 2, then we're keeping Ryan and Graham.
Okay.
Their connection is too great to break.
Okay. I agree with you. but I'm going to change it just a little bit. I'm going to actually let Graham go to home, but still be a supporting character, but still, not, and I know I'm kind of breaking my own question, but I would like to see a better explored Yaz, and in saying that, pairing her with Ryan.
I think at this point, it is very possible that, Ryan and Graham's story can be wrapped up pretty quickly. I think people say, I think they could go so many different places with this. And I feel like they're just great characters, the two of them. So I'd rather watch more of them than Yaz, but that's the only reason that I think I would possibly maybe want to stick with Yaz, just because I feel like she hasn't been explored at all. And there's got to be some story there if they made her a character. So I'm just kind of waiting to see what that might be. And I think I said in my review, I'm hopeful that in the next season that we're going to get one where she really uses her police skills and really shines in the episode in that aspect. I think that would be really great for her character.
Totally agree. So what was your favorite episode of this particular series?
I think there was, honestly, I'm not going to lie. There was quite a few that I really, really liked. But I think it was the It Takes You Away.
Okay. Interesting.
That was, I just adored that entire episode. I don't know how I felt about the frog, but I'm okay with the frog if, with the rest of the episode. I do think that they kind of missed an opportunity of maybe making it somebody important to the doctor.
Agreed.
But I really loved the message of the fact that, it's just a metaphor for grief. And as much as, when you lose somebody, you want to be there for the people that you love, but maybe you're not because you're, I just really loved the idea of that with the dad and the daughter, and the fact that he wasn't really there for her because he was so wrapped up in what he lost. I think that that's true of just people in, just life in general. If we lose somebody, we kind of get wrapped up in that person.
It's interesting. I'd never thought of that until you said that. And it made me think of Ryan's dad was basically going in a different direction, but going through something quite similar to what the father in this particular episode was going through.
Yeah. I think there were definitely themes in the season. So I don't want to say that there wasn't like any sort of arc in that sense. But there just wasn't a big plotline arc, I guess. But I really think that, there was a big theme of abandonment and why that happens and exploring that. And I think It Takes You Away did a really great job of showcasing that.
So for me, if I were to say what my favorite, having a little bit of time since we've watched the series, I'm still going to say Rosa would have been my favorite, mainly because from me and one of my other co-hosts were both from Mississippi, and one of the other co-hosts, Lee, while he lives in North Carolina, he is from originally Alabama. So we, in different age groups, lived in that era or shortly thereafter. And I swear that was one of the few times in Doctor Who that it literally took my breath away at the beginning with the slap.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it was a very powerful and very thoughtful episode that I think they executed brilliantly.
Yes. And I really love, well, I don't know if love is the correct term, but just the fact that they even showcased the doctor being kind of silent and uncomfortable in some scenes out in public. Whereas I feel like the doctor tends to be pretty preachy in a lot of maybe situations, but it just kind of brought up the magnitude of how it was, not that not that I was there or anything, but I think that it really brought kind of a very serious note to the episode. I think that the scene that sticks out to me, it was just when they were sitting down to eat, that I feel like it was, although Ryan had a good comeback in that scene, I remember.
Very good comeback.
Yeah, but it still felt so uncomfortable, just the entire scene.
Yes. And all the actors and across the board. And I love, particularly, so I'm going to give Yaz a praise here.
Yes. Yeah.
Her comment that she said, which was something I think viewers were probably wondering, is, where does she sit on the bus? When she asked that question, and it seemed so profound, but if you put her in that situation, where do I go? What applies to me? Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I love, that episode was phenomenal. And, I think just the thing of at the end with Graham having to be kind of the one, or the person that kind of made it all happen and stuff was really heartbreaking.
And if you add in the layer of knowing that his recently deceased wife was also not per se African American, but of black descent for British, and I don't want to say the wrong word, but you get my point.
Yes.
And considering the young man that he's saying is his grandson is also of the same national or ethnic origin, I should say. So I've really felt for him on so many levels.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was just, I think that they did such a wonderful job. And I liked kind of the discussion of it's small moments that have kind of an effect on everything.
So I have a couple of more questions before we wrap up. And one of them is one about a character that has been with the show since its beginning, and it's not the Doctor, in 1963, which is the TARDIS. What did you think of the new TARDIS console room?
I think it's okay. I kind of miss the homey vibe of Capaldi's. There's something really that I really liked about that. But it's okay because it doesn't, I don't know. I feel like this TARDIS team, or whatever you'd like to call them, kind of constantly go out on adventures. We don't really see them like living in the TARDIS too much, which we have kind of more with other companions, or like, I feel like Amy and Rory had their own room and they were, you know what I mean? So.
Well, you had so many others, even back in the classic, you had so many others that you would actually see them in their rooms. To me, and I'm going
that's exciting.
I'm going to, spoilers.
Well, that's okay.
Well, you've seen, and we'll get to that in just a minute, but, I will say this, and I'll try to channel my best second Doctor in saying, oh, they've redecorated and I don't like it. I do not like it. It just seems cramped to me. I love the hexagon things. I love the door, but the crystal pillars and the way they kind of just, go over the, top, me personally, I just kind of don't like it. So
yeah, I understand. It was, I think it's always exciting to see a new TARDIS like interior and everything. And I think it was still like an exciting moment when that happened and everything, but it's probably not my favorite,
But you're right. They don't use it as a home. It's more of a travel device. So
right.
All right. So 3 wishes for Series 12 in 2020.
Oh man, I would like to see. To be completely honest, I would like to see a companion return.
Okay.
to see the Doctor, or just a regular character, doesn't need to be a former companion, but to see this Doctor interact with a previous.
Agreed.
But I think that's just my need for like the nostalgia of the show, and so maybe something like that. I don't really have a pick of who, but just anybody.
It's almost an acknowledgement, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Totally agree.
I think maybe for me that the issue is that maybe the Doctor's companions don't really know how much she's lived. Yes. And what she's gone through. And I'd love for them to get that perspective. Also for the Doctor to just have a nice moment. So even if, take your pick of who, there's plenty of, I have said for a long time that if they can, it could be a Christmas special, it could be whatever, but I would love it if they brought Mickey and Martha back.
Oh, that would be cool.
For just one episode, and just like a good adventure episode. And, but yeah, I've been wanting that for a while.
That would be very cool. And somebody else that I would like to see, and this could be a Christmas episode too. I wouldn't mind seeing Jack back.
Oh, that would be great.
And yeah. Jack could really, play off make some jokes about, hey, oh, Doctor, you've really changed, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think for sure there's so much potential. And I feel like, even if it's somebody, there's so many, just people that even the Doctor has just, even if it wasn't like an official companion or anything. So that's a big thing for me, I would probably say. And then, kind of what I was talking about before, I think that would be another wish of just more intimate interactions between the characters. I would really like that. And, I don't know.
More episodes.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, that would be great. I think, I'm trying to think of like something that I would really like to happen, but I honestly, the third thing would probably be just like showing the Doctor's flaws a little bit, fleshing her out a bit more.
Cool.
And yeah.
Cool. Well,
stuff like that.
Last question. And the last question is going to be, you are now reacting to classic Doctor Who, and you are in first Doctor era. And
going in order.
your nickname for him, which I totally love, you describe him as what?
Well, I don't know if there's like a particular nickname, but he is like the sassy Doctor.
Yes, that's it. That was what I was going for. So yes. What is it about Doctor number 1 that you find sassy?
He is so, he just cannot help himself to like, throw shade or like, just these like zingers at people. I swear, it's so funny to me, that he also has the whole like grumpy old man down, like that whole vibe really, really well. But he just, whenever he has, I feel like if anybody is slightly pissing him off or slightly just not agreeing with him or going with his way, he just can cut them with words.
Yes. Yes. And
I love it. I love every second of it.
And interestingly enough, he cuts the 3 companions, especially Susan, more than anybody.
Yeah. It's just, I am thoroughly enjoying the first Doctor. There's a part of me that's a little nervous, that going into Classic Who with new Doctors and new companions, and if I don't like a particular Doctor, it might be tough to get through. I have no idea. I guess we'll see. But I am so happy that I love the first Doctor and the companions. So far.
What I am most excited for you about is being able to see this in reverse and, starting with 2005, because you actually mirror Clarence a little bit in this, which is when we go back and revisit, even though he had seen some of the classic whenever he was younger, going back and seeing a classic episode and now having the context that you will have, you're going to have the same thing, and you're going to think, oh, well, this little bitty thing that you just might hear them talk about in episode or story, whatever. Oh, they actually talked about that in season 2 or 3 or, of the current one. So I think that's going to be really fun for you going forward.
I'm really excited, and I've enjoyed it. I really didn't know so I've seen all of the first season, of Classic Who, and I've liked every single story that I've watched. And I thought that there would be at least one that I was like, whew, that was tough. It was tough to get there, And
I think once you get over the production value is different, I will give you one piece of advice, and this was something that I learned back when I first started reviewing, TV shows or whatever. And someone told me, when you're reviewing, if you're watching something that is not made current, picture the time that it was made in, and was it for the day that it was the production value the same as so see it in the year, see it in 1964, 63, 70, 75, 85, or whenever it may be, and I had to learn that. So that would be some advice that I would give you, which I think just from watching your reactions, you've already got that.
I think you have to have the right approach with Classic Who. I think the characters are phenomenal and the writing's really good, and you got it. Everything else you sort of take with it and have fun with it. Some of it's pretty hilarious, the effects that they have and everything. And I haven't gotten any hate for, having a bit of a laugh at some stuff. And, because I think I also still really appreciate it. I'm not like treating it like it's a joke or anything like that. It's just, some of the effects are pretty funny. I mean, they really are.
So I'm going to give you, and I won't tell you which doctor, what story, but there is, speaking of effects, there is an episode that you will get to at some point that is an episode with someone that is obviously a human dressed up in a dinosaur costume. And the person is like, in the dinosaur costume, kind of it looks like they're peeping around this wall. And I'm like, oh, and it's literally, you will die laughing.
Oh my God. So I also just really love dinosaurs. So that's perfect.
you're going to love that, because it is
I can't wait.
Imagine I think it was imagine a speckled looking Barney fighting, the unit people. Yeah.
Oh my God. I can't. I'm very excited.
People, I should say.
Yeah. I'm very, very excited. So I have said that, like the effects don't, honestly, what it takes me a little bit more to get used to are the like fight scenes.
Yes.
That happen but I also have to say, cause I watched, the Aztecs, which those were the ones that had, a couple of, if you'd like to call them, fight scenes. And what the problem is I was watching that in the midst of also watching the end of Daredevil season 3.
Okay.
Which is like some of the best fight scenes you're ever going to see. And I'm just like, just going back and forth. I'm like, I can't
take it.
It's not. So I think that stuff like that is a little bit, tougher for me to get through than, if there's like a weird costume or anything like that.
So one other thing, and I think you've had to deal with this too, that I have to condition my brain for, especially in the early episodes with the first Doctor, is the acting style back then was so different and so much more melodramatic. And
yes.
Specifically Susan.
Well, Susan. I think somebody should make a compilation of me, like, having an issue with Susan screaming all the time.
So when did Susan not scream?
She was pretty good in the Sensorites.
Yes. Funny that you said that because I watched some of that this afternoon, your reaction. And you actually made a comment to the effect of Susan is not, I don't want to say irritating because that's not the word you used, but basically Susan was not irritating you.
Yeah. Well, there was one, I can't remember. I think it was one of the Keys of Marinus episodes where I had a splitting headache and I could not take it. Yeah, I think it was one of those that I started it by saying guys, I have a splitting headache. I'm going to power through this or whatever. And she screamed throughout the entire episode. And I'm just Susan, I can't take you right now. I absolutely, I do like Susan though, but she just, I think it's just probably how they wrote her character.
Agreed.
Scream
and again,
a lot.
That's what that was the time. You needed a damsel in distress, and she was that.
Yeah.
So.
And but Ian and Barbara are just, I love them so much. I can't take it. They've climbed my companions list of favorites.
That and that is so cool that you coming from New Who have been able to connect all the way back to the very beginning. Man, they are the best. I'm going to see how their story pans out. And if they do not kiss soon, I'm going to throw something at I'm going to break my TV. I'm throwing that out there. Okay.
Because I just really want them to get together. And it's just, man, they are really not giving me anything to work with.
So to prevent, let's just say this has been a wonderful, wonderful, and one more wonderful or absolutely fantastic conversation. You are absolutely welcome back here anytime. We ought to get you on for an episode when Clarence and Lee and I are all on. That would be fun. So we ought to do that really sometime in the future. But thank you on behalf of all of us for coming back on. This was so much fun for me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. And for anyone listening, if you enjoyed this conversation and are also Walking Dead and Game of Thrones fans, we also have an episode of Discussing Comics going out this same day as this episode. So check that out. And again, thank you. And I will be back in a moment to wrap up. Thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you listening. We look forward to connecting with you on Facebook. And also, please subscribe to this show and let others know about the show. Share the show, and we definitely appreciate it. So on behalf of everyone here at the Discussing Network, thank you again for joining us, and we will be back next time. You've been listening to the Discussing Network. Find out more at discussingnetwork.com.
Discussing Who is brought to you by Audible. You've probably heard of Audible, but just in case, they are the world's leading provider of audiobooks. They have more than 180,000 titles. Let me say that again. 180,000 titles to choose from. Imagine a genre, they've got an audiobook. And these files play on smartphones, Kindles, tablets, in fact, over 500 different devices. Now, for fans of Discussing Who, Audible is offering a free download when you start a new Audible subscription. And you can choose anything at all from that vast library. But we know you want to get one of their absolutely fantastic Doctor Who titles, which include New Adventures of the Doctor, but also Torchwood and River Song. And they're performed for you by actors you know and love. Wonderful voices, Tom Baker, Alex Kingston, David Tennant. The list goes on and on. So try it out for 30 days. And if at the end of the month you decide Audible is not for you, you still get to keep that Doctor Who book you downloaded. So look at it this way. Free Doctor Who book. So here's how you get started. Point your favorite web browser to audibletrial.com/discussingwho. That's audibletrial, all one word, AUDIBLETRIAL.com/discussingwho. also one word. And that's how you get your free book. What could be better than that?